Good day guys, it's Tati here, and I'm back with the ultimate updated version of the build guide for Mortar Cannon Cluster Grenade. The build is very good to play on softcore trade and it's viable to league start on SSF or hardcore. I personally played this build already for almost 3 weeks at this point on hardcore. I'm blasting highest tier maps with 6 modifiers with no problem. I killed Arbiter for the first time. You can see the video of the kill on my YouTube channel. Clear speed of the build feels pretty amazing. Single target is outstanding. I have no problems killing any bosses ever since I switched to this skill at level 52. I was killing all the campaign bosses in mere seconds, and then all the progression to highest tier maps and pinnacle bosses. Nothing really changed. I'm still demolishing enemies and bosses in seconds. The biggest thing is this build is very easy to use. It's a totem playstyle, which I like the most. You just summon this Mortar Cannon. It kills enemies for you. You don't have to do some crazy skill combinations for any, like, you don't need to care about uptime of any buffs or temporary charges. We can also do any map modifier with this build, even on hardcore. I'm just, whenever I need to choose the map, I go for all 6 modifiers and I can just open the map whatever it rolls. It feels really strong. The only weakness I would say is sometimes you can't see boss abilities, right? Visual clutter of this skill is pretty big, but we don't really need to see the abilities anyway because we kill bosses so quickly. We just get to have a stun and they are dead. So let's talk about mechanics of this build, how exactly it works. So Mortar Cannon is a new skill gem introduced in patch 0.3. It summons this ballista that shoots a socketed grenade for you. The grenade that we're gonna use in this build is Cluster Grenade. It's definitely the strongest to use in Mortar Cannons in my practice and my testing that I did over the weeks. Cluster Grenade has a really long cooldown of 10 seconds, but it's not a problem because we can virtually bypass the cooldown of the skill by using Mortar Cannon Totems. So the way we do this is we spec into additional cooldown use on the passive tree, and then we use the second wind support, which doubles the cooldown uses. So we have 4 cooldown uses on this skill. So whenever we summon a Mortar Cannon, we don't have a cooldown on summoning them, so I can just spam them without any cooldown. And every time the new totem is being summoned, it has fully refreshed cooldown uses. So the freshly created Mortar Cannon can attack 4 times without having any cooldown, basically. And then after it attacks 4 times, it goes on a massive cooldown because we actually reduce the cooldown with second wind and with payload support. So at this point, we just need to summon a new totem. And we pretty much kind of like spam them. Against bosses, we can summon them and wait for a couple of seconds before we resummon a new totem. But it feels like a very smooth playstyle. So the way we scale damage even further is Cluster Grenades. I can show how the skill looks like. You first shoot a projectile, and it explodes, and then it creates many other explosions all over the place. So if we reduce the detonation time, which we also take on passive tree, we take reduced grenade detonation time here and over here, the explosions will get to overlap way better. As you can see, they just explode immediately because they detonate immediately. So that allows us to get way stronger overlapping. We also scale some increased area of effect. We also reduce the projectile speed from this notable on tree. This projectile speed also makes it so that grenades don't fly too far away from the initial explosions, so the overlaps of secondary explosions are more powerful and more consistent. So this provides us with really massive damage scaling. The Ascendancy that we're using is Warbringer. This is the best Ascendancy for this build. Warbringer has really strong nodes for this. Getting +1 totem is powerful because it makes it basically so we have more cannons shooting at the same time. It also summons these ancestral spirits, so you can see that every time I summon a Mortar Cannon or also a totem, it summons a random minion. There is different types of minions, and there are those that give us buffs. Like, for example, these turtle gives defensive buff, like extra defenses. The big monkey and the other guy gives buffs that last for 20 seconds, so it's pretty easy to keep full uptime against bosses. And this gives rage on hits and 20% skill speed, and the other buff gives a 50% increased damage, so it's really powerful nodes. This node makes it so that we basically take 20% less damage from hits, not from damage over time, at all times, because we always have a totem summoned. It's really powerful defensively. This makes it so that you break armor on hit automatically, and this also applies to totems and our mortar cannons. So our mortar cannons automatically instantly break armor of any enemy, and that's super strong because we combine that with the damage scaling of effectiveness of fully broken armor on our passive tree, and we also can apply fully broken armor debuff to fire damage. So our skill, Cluster Grenade, does a combo of physical and fire damage. It converts 20% to fire, and secondary projectiles converts 40% to fire. So majority of damage is still physical, but we still do fire damage, and we can apply armor break to that, and it feels also really powerful. Also, these ancestral spirits that we summon from Ascendancy, we basically have them at all times, so we can have some debuffs being triggered by them from support gems like Maim or Kalnin Strike. And the build, this node also gives Encased Jade skill, which kind of like buffs your life pool, you could say. It gives you 10% physical damage mitigation when you have 10 stacks of Jade, and then you can use this skill in case of Jade and get a fat guard buff based on your life. We have to go for life in this build because we're too far away from any shield parts of the tree. So yeah, Warbringer feels really strong for that. So, of course, another viable Ascendancy for Mortar Cannons is Tactician, and it's possible to play this build on Tactician as well. I get this question a lot. It's gonna be a bit not as powerful as Warbringer, because I think both damage scaling and defensive scaling from Tactician are a bit more conditional. So I would still recommend to play Warbringer if you want to start playing this build. But if you already have Tactician, you can easily play this on Tactician too. So the way we scale defenses, I just mentioned that we have to go for life scaling. We can't go for energy shield because we have so many good nodes in this part of the tree, and all the energy shield scaling is at the north part of the tree, or like northeast. And I thought maybe life is gonna be terrible, but no. I managed to find a really strong combo, and I feel really safe playing in hardcore again. So we just scale a decent amount of life by getting just life on gear and strength, which also gives life. And we get some extra HP through damage taken from mana before life. We can get such rune on body armor, 10% of damage is taken from mana before life, and there is a desecrate modifier, a suffix. It's Kurgle suffix on Amulet, which can give you up to 16% of damage taken from mana before life. So we can have like 30, even 40% of damage taken from mana before life. So basically our mana pool is added to life pool virtually. And on top of that, of course, instead of energy shield, we scale armor. Initially I was thinking about going with armor plus evasion, but no, I tried full armor, and it feels really powerful. We get quite a lot of it, and there's a new stat, armor applies to elemental damage. That allows to also mitigate elemental damage way better, and we can even run maps with minus max res or with elemental penetration from enemies. Like I mentioned before, we can run any map modifier, even on hardcore with this build. So on my character I have about, what, 15k armor unbuffed, and 15.5k armor applies to elemental damage. And yeah, these defenses, they just feel good. So of course we combine this with defenses that I mentioned from Ascendancy, 20% less damage taken and 10% less physical damage taken from Encased Jades. And overall, it's really not a problem. So it's not full face roll like energy shield builds where you can get like 20,000 HP and forget about everything, but yeah, even life works, and I really expect them to nerf energy shields in the future anyway. So I will have 3 links in the video description because I wanted to share every type of these possible builds for this. Let me show. So this is the first maxroll link I will have. It's going to be called Constricting Command version. So this Constricting Command is a unique helmet that is actually best in slots, and it's really powerful, this league. But it's quite pricey as well. I actually have a corruption with 6 fewer enemies, but it doesn't really matter. So the most important stat is to requires 5 fewer enemies to be surrounded, because initially you need 5 enemies to count as surrounded. So we always will count as being surrounded when I have 5 roll, and this allows us to use really strong nodes on tree for being surrounded. So I basically take all of them. They all are so powerful. They give increased damage, they give defenses, they give a lot of armor, life regeneration and attack speed. So it's definitely best in slot, but it's quite rare, so it can be hard to find it in solo self-founds, and it can be quite pricey to buy that, especially on League Start and Trade. So I have also a version of the build without Constricting Command, because this is how I started this build, and I played it at the League Start for a few days, and it was also still really, really powerful. So you can totally League Start this build on SSF. And a third link is going to be the leveling part, because we can only start using Mortar Cannon at level 52, because Cluster Grenade skill requires level 52 to be used. Sadly, it's very high tier gem. So yeah, we're going to be talking about leveling a little bit later in the video. For now, let's check out. So this is the main build with Constricting Command. You can see the passive tree. So basically we can follow the progression like this. Again, we can start using this build level 52, so the first like 60 plus passives is gonna be something that you should have already after the leveling to level 52. So yeah, you can follow the progression like this. You can see which Ascendancy nodes to take first. Again, so we take the most important nodes first, which is reduce detonation time here and here, reduce projectile speed, additional cooldown use, and then the most powerful surrounding nodes we take first. I'm scaling mostly damage first, and later I take extra defenses. And it feels pretty good this way, because especially early on we're gonna be destroying everything with the damage anyway, until we get to like red high tier maps and waystones. So the skills we're using are listed here. And the support gems are listed in order of importance, and the skill gems are also listed in order of importance pretty much. So yeah, Mortar Cannon, we need to link Cluster Grenade to it, and then we must use Multi-Shot 2 to get extra projectiles. This multiplies damage significantly. Then Short Fuse 2 gives less detonation time, which also multiplies damage very significantly. Like, don't look at the less damage dealt on the support, it still gives us a huge amount of extra damage. Second Wind 3 makes it so that we have extra cooldown uses, so each totem can shoot more times, and it also makes it so that totems heal themselves when they shoot at enemies. So this is a really powerful skill gem, and it feels very smooth for mapping. Initially I was using different support gem, but then I decided to try Second Wind and scale a little bit of attack speed on tree, and yeah, ultimately it feels smoother and nicer. The damage uptime is nicer. And the last support, number 6, is going to be Payload, also really powerful support that basically gives 50% more damage, because grenades can have 50% chance to activate second time, without really any drawback, because we don't care about cooldown of the skill. Whenever totems stop shooting, we just summon a new totem. And then the aura we use is Time of Need, with Clarity, Vitality, Precision, and Compressed Duration. There are other options you can use for reservation, like for example, some people in chat really liked to use a Companion with like Shock and Haste Aura, but I honestly just prefer Time of Need, because this also allows us to run more different map modifiers. With curses, with like Elemental Weakness and Temporal Chains, the curse gets removed very quickly with Time of Need. So it's pretty nice defensive buff, and having extra regeneration both for life and mana is also quite powerful, because the portion of damage is taken from mana, so we want regeneration to be fast on both, like both pools, both globes. And then Ancestral Spirits and Encasing Jade is the skills that you get automatically from Ascendancy, from Warbringer. That's basically the support we use here, that makes them a little bit more powerful, apply like debuffs, Maim, Blind, Scalding Strike, increase their level and make them a bit tankier. In case in Jade, we can get extra duration on it and faster casting, because it's not an instant skill, you have to actually like cast it for a short duration. I mean, it's pretty fast cast, so it's not a problem. And then other skills I don't really use almost ever. Honestly, my mapping, you could see that I'm just spamming Mortar Cannons and that's it. But we also need to have some extra skill gems because we need support gems. At the bottom of the tree we have 2 notables. Over here we get 5% increased life, mana, and movement speed if we have 10 red supports, 10 blue supports, and 10 green support gems. And this one gives us immunity to shock when you have majority of green supports. So we want to have 10 red supports, 10 blue supports, and 11 green supports for this. So I'm just using some extra skills, like crossbow shot I literally never use. But I have some support gems there just to have to fulfill this requirement. Flash grenade you might consider using sometimes to stun bosses even faster. Like usually when I approach the boss, I use Encasing Jade preemptively to get this buffer of extra guard. And then my totems, basically my Mortar Cannons, heavy stun the boss quickly. And during the heavy stun duration, usually the boss is already dead. But yeah, so that's, we could get to this heavy stun sooner. Using flash grenades is an okay idea. Oil grenade also is a grenade which can become kind of useful. You can shoot it and it will apply the debuff, right? The ground will make it so that enemies have -20 resistances. We do a little bit of fire damage, right? Mostly it's physical, but a little bit of fire damage would do, so reducing their fire resistance is somewhat useful too. So if you really want to press extra buttons and like you already summoned all your 4 totems and like what else am I supposed to do? You can press these 2 grenades, but again, it's not really that important at all. So the gear that we're going to be using is on the Constricting Command version of the build, we use Constricting Command Helmet, of course. Again, requires 5 fewer enemies to be surrounded to permanently count as being surrounded. It's okay to use requires 4 fewer enemies to be surrounded. This way you will count as surrounded when you have at least 1 enemy in the radius. And initially I didn't have enough money to buy the 5 version, and I was running around with 4 version, 4 fewer enemies, and it was fine. But yeah, ultimately you want to switch to 5. Most of the time you have enemy around you when it's necessary, right? But we also get movement speed and dodge roll distance from tree while being surrounded. So having 5 roll feels nicer for like backtracking and maps and such. So our crossbow, I will have a link in the video description to how I crafted this crossbow. It's a pretty easy craft if you don't go for the fully min-max version of this crossbow. So yeah, what we want is increased physical damage and flat physical damage on prefix, and then there is a Desecrate modifier, +1 to maximum summon Ballista Totems. It's also a prefix. This puts us at 4 totems instead of 3. And then on suffixes, with an essence, perfect essence of battle, you can add +6 levels of all attack skills. So this gives a huge amount of extra damage too. The good thing is that our Mortar Cannon does not have attack or projectile tag, but Cluster Grenade does have it. So we scale levels of Cluster Grenade without scaling level of Mortar Cannon itself. And we don't want to scale level of Mortar Cannon, something I forgot to mention in the skills. We want to keep it at level 16 or initially even at lowest level of 13, because when you increase the level of Mortar Cannon, it gives you extra mana costs and totem defenses, but it doesn't give any damage. So scaling the level by too much would make it so that mana cost would be too big, and it would be like very uncomfortable playing this. But yeah, so on crossbow, also on suffixes, the useful modifiers would be to have his attack speed and strength, but it's really not that important at all. We want to use, by the way, the crossbow, which has grenade skills, fire additional projectile on implicit. This is siege crossbow, or lower level is cannonade crossbow, and there is also level 33 version of crossbow which has it. And I guess you'll have to use level 33 version when you switch to this build at level 52. This +1 skill, +1 grenade fired is a really big deal, really big damage multiplier, so we need to have such crossbow. On chest we want as much armor as possible and life, and then also everywhere we want, where we can, we want armor applies to elemental damage. So it's on body armor, gloves, and boots. We want to have such stats. Also the runes on chest, damage taken from mana before life, and we have it also on Amulet. Damage taken from mana before life, this is a desecration modifier with the beast crafting. Everywhere else, basically, we want to have life and mana also. Yeah, so mana allows us to have better mana regeneration, because regeneration is based on your maximum mana. So you will be able to level up the Mortar Cannon a little bit further and make totems even tankier. They don't really have any problems with survivability until like red tier, like tier 11, tier 10 Waystones. Then you probably want to increase the level from level 13 to level 16. Currently for me it's level 16 and I have no problems with totem survivability. If you have like 1,400 mana or more, you could even level up the totem Mortar Cannon gem to level 18. At this point, the resistances, elemental resistances on Mortar Cannons will be fully capped, and they will be like super tanky. So yeah, we have life, mana, strength, which also gives basically life to us. And then mana regen on rings feels pretty good, not mandatory, but yeah, pretty good to have it. Of course, you want to cap your elemental resistances and chaos stress especially. Race is not super important to cap, by the way, because we have armor applied to elemental damage, so... Like I said, I run maps with minus max stress or with elemental penetration on enemies, and I'm still alive in hardcore, so it's totally fine. Yeah, besides that, I think there's no more super important things on equipment. So on Amulet, we have like two options for anoint or allocation modifier. Material solidification is expensive anoint, but this is the best one. It gives a lot of damage. It's over here. 8% of damage is actually physical damage and in fact a fully broken armor, and with scale fully broken armor effect. It's really powerful. And there is a cheap anoint that I'm currently using still, actually, because I can't find like I don't want to invest into super expensive oils on hardcore trades, so I'm just using conservative casting. It gives mana regen and mana cost efficiency, makes totems mana sustain also way easier and nicer. So if I forgot to mention something, you can always check notes here in maxroll, and I try to put some like as much good information as I can here. Also, yeah, so the jewels that you want to use, the stat priority for jewels, totem placement speed is quite important for the builds to feel good. I will maybe continue adding more different notes to this maxroll guide if we're gonna have like more different questions appear in YouTube comments. So again, this is SSF league starter version of the build without constricting commands. Basically, the tree is different. We don't take the surrounded nodes, but we still take a lot of really powerful nodes. So this is a lot of damage from these nodes. We can take these nodes, which gives quite a lot of damage to instead of taking the surrounding nodes. So overall, yeah, it doesn't really make the builds way worse not having constricting commands at all. But having constricting commands feels nevertheless good, because honestly, like, speed that you get from it especially feels nice. This movement speed and dodge roll distance feels so good on mapping. And yeah, that's pretty much all the difference between the two links, the two builds. It's the passive tree is different, and like the helmets also, we use helmets with armor, life, mana, strength. Armor applies to elemental damage and resistance. That's all we want in our gear. As for the leveling, so you can level these builds even with like just going with crossbow and grenades from the very beginning, from Act 1. I had people in Twitch chat saying that they were doing that and they felt like it's just fine, it works well. I tried to do such run before the league started, and on the league start I did the Shockwave Totem melee leveling, and it felt stronger and nicer to me. And also it's totem gameplay, which like I like so much. So yeah, I prefer leveling with Shockwave Totems, and this is the leveling process that I'm sharing because I know it the best. So the third link will be for the leveling, right? So we need to level 52 in order to be able to switch to Mortar Cannon cluster grenades. It has level 52 requirements, it's impossible to switch before. So because we're Warbringer, it's very natural to use melee skills. It has really good nodes at the start for Shockwave Totems. So you can also follow the progression of the tree by like mouse overing here at the bottom, what Ascendancy nodes to take, in which order, which nodes to take on tree. I tried to make the tree more similar so that it would take less gold to swap at level 52, but you need around 50,000 gold. At level 52, you'll have to refund like this part of the tree into this tree, right? So it will take about 50,000 golds in my experience. So the skills that we're using, you can see the skill section here. You go to previous, and from level 1, I show all the skills that I was using. Initially, until level 6, when you can get access to Shockwave, we use Rolling Slam plus Bone Shatter as a clear speed. We prime enemies for stun with Rolling Slam, and then we explode them with Bone Shatter and clear the whole screen pretty much. We use Mace Strike as a single attack DPS against bosses. At level 6, we start using Shockwave Totem. Pay attention to skill rotation here. From level 6 to 22. The rotation is going to be to summon Totem, and then really important to use Earthquake. Earthquake summons Jagged Ground. So Shockwave Totems do most damage through Jagged Grounds. If there is no Jagged Ground, Totems do very little damage. So it's really crucial to use this Earthquake. You can even do Earthquake with the second weapon set. Just have a one-hander with a lot of attack speed there and attach your Earthquake to that. We don't do damage with Earthquake, we just want to spawn Jagged Ground. Multiple explosions from different Jagged Grounds do not overlap on the same boss, so having one Jagged Ground is enough on the boss to do maximum damage with Shockwave Totems. So yeah, you summon your Totems, you do Earthquake, and then you just spam Mace Strike against the boss and maintain your Totems and Jagged Grounds be like alive on the boss. So Mace Strike is not that important to use. Against packs, you can still use Bone Shatter if you see enemies being primed for stun. Next, we add Herald of Ash. Totems cannot proc Herald of Ash explosions, but if you kill enemies with a self-attack with like Bone Shatter, then Herald of Ash explosions will proc. This is the best skill we can use at this level with our stat requirements. At level 22, we can add Volcanic Fissure, and that's a pretty big deal. So Shockwave Totems are really good at exploding the fissures from Volcanic Fissure repeatedly over and over again. So our rotation changes. We summon Shockwave Totem and summon Jagged Ground from Earthquake, and then we also use Volcanic Fissure to spawn this fissure on top of the boss, and Totems will do way more damage by also exploding Volcanic Fissure's damage all the time. Here we do damage with Volcanic Fissure, so we want to do this with a two-hander mace in our main hand. And then, if you still have some time to use Mace Strike, you might even use Mace Strike later, but unlikely you will have time for that with these three skills that you really have to rotate. At level 31, we get access to a new skill, Forge Hammer. Instead of, I use it instead of Volcanic Fissure. So Forge Hammer with Fist of War for our attunement. It throws hammer in the ground, and then you use Infernal Cry after that in order to basically spawn a bunch of fissures around this hammer. So here's the skill rotation here. First Forge Hammer in the boss, Infernal Cry later. And then we summon all our Shockwave Totems, and it will repeatedly explode the Forge Hammer's fissures on the boss and do a lot of damage. And right after that, we also spawn Earthquake for our Totems to do a lot of damage through Jagged Ground as well. Mace Strike, we can probably delete at this point from the here, but yeah, I mean, if you still have some time to use Mace Strike, you go ahead and do that, right? And then until level 52, we can swap at level 36 to Proper Aura. Again, Herald of Ash was kind of useless, almost. Overwhelming Presence makes it easier to stun enemies. It reduces their stun thresholds, and we can already use Vitality and Clarity here. So this is the skill we use. Again, in the notes, I tried to describe the skill rotation and... yeah, another important thing, by the way, is also for mana sustain Shockwave Totem, you don't want to level it up too much, because it might be too costly mana-wise to summon like super high-level Shockwave Totems. So if you have plus level of all melee skills somewhere on your gear, like on gloves or amulets or weapon, make sure to make even lower level version of Shockwave Totem to not have too much of a mana cost. Also, yeah, the weapon you want to use while leveling with Shockwave Totems is basically big, fat, two-handed mace with a lot of physical damage on it, a lot of physical DPS. Attack speed is also nice to have. So yeah, you get to level 52, and then you can swap to Mortar Cannon Cluster Grenade. 50,000 gold you gotta spend in order to respec. Another thing is that early on you can use Amulet. There's a unique amulet, Idol of Alderaan, that gives +1 to skill uses, or like limits, skill limits. So it basically gives +1 totem. So it's really nice amulet to use early on, but eventually, with Mortar Cannon, you want to get an amulet with +3 levels of all projectile skills. This is a really big damage multiplier from a rare amulet, and we get big defense from amulets as well, damage taken from mana before life. So that's all I want to talk about the builds. Again, you can check out the links in the video description. There is 3 links for 3 versions of the build. Leveling part before switching to Mortar Cannon, and then with Constricting Command helmet and without it SSF style. Again, so initially I had some performance issue playing this build as well until I started using like a upscaling mode, NVIDIA DLSS with ultra performance. There is also a lot of issues for other players as well this league with FPS, especially with the beast mechanics. So there was quite a lot of Reddit threads about like how to improve performance of your game. So I checked them out as well, and some of them also are pretty useful to read, I would say. Like for example, enabling resizable bar for your NVIDIA cards. All felt good, or reducing the channel counts to like from high to medium or even low. I used all that, and now I have pretty stable FPS maps, 60 plus at least. So yeah, hopefully you will enjoy this build as much as I do, and take care of your totems, guys. See you next time.